Hello, coaches! Welcome back to another episode of Coach Better Spotlight. My name is Kim Cafino, and I've worked with hundreds of teachers, coaches, and leaders in schools around the world to help them create thriving and sustainable instructional coaching programs. And I'm on a mission to help you coach better. Wherever you are in your coaching journey, we can support you. Come learn with me in one of our courses or private mentoring packages designed specifically for instructional coaches. Join our global Coach Better community, ask any questions you'd like to hear us answer, and find all of our resources for instructional coaches on our website at coachbetter.tv. You can also find us on social media at Eduro Learning or at our Coach Better Facebook group, and subscribe to our channel here on YouTube to catch all of our latest videos. If you're not sure where to start, take our free quiz to get a tailored list of resources delivered straight to you and designed specifically for your level of coaching experience. Find it at coachbetter.tv/quiz. Today's episode is part of our special series featuring real-life coaching conversations with a member of our community. This conversation is with Katy Patton, Assistant Elementary School Principal at the International School of Panama. Huge thank you to Katy for being willing to record this session to share with all of you. Over the years, I've had many requests to see and hear what a coaching conversation looks like in practice. This can be really hard because for the most part, these conversations need to be private. It's hard to be vulnerable in a space that will become public. It's hard to have a conversation about challenges when you know others in your community could hear them. But Katy has very generously allowed us to record this coaching session so you can get a peek into what those conversations look and sound like. This is part of a series featuring coaching conversations. So if you like this one, keep your eyes peeled for the rest in this series. This episode is a great example of the many demands of leadership and how just a single coaching conversation can help you feel hopeful and a sense of direction in moving forward. In this conversation, we talk about how challenging it is for leaders to manage the constant shifting from one responsibility to another, to rapidly shift their mindset and attitude from one setting to the next, to be present in the moment when ongoing issues are lingering, to process all of the different conversations they have in the day so they can be better prepared the next time around, and to develop suitable strategies to reflect, process, and plan for a very busy week. And the best part is we end the conversation with some solid, concrete steps moving forward. It's important to highlight that I haven't worked with Katy before. This is the very first time that we've had a coaching conversation. Even though we just met, following the flow of a coaching conversation that I use in all of my coaching calls with all of my clients, helped us unpack the most pressing issues that Katy is facing and helped uncover the right next step for her. Before we jump into the call, I'd like to invite you to look for moments where I'm taking time to truly understand the challenges Katy is facing, how I'm providing space and time for Katy to process her own thinking, where I'm making decisions about how to navigate coaching stances, how I'm helping Katy identify the choices that will help her reach her goals, and how coaches are intentional about moving through the arc of a single coaching conversation. At the end of the call, I'll come back with a few thoughts to wrap up the episode and share a little bit about how you can grow in your coaching practice too. Okay, let's jump into the conversation. All right. Hi, Katy. I am super excited to have this coaching conversation with you here on the Coach Better podcast. Thank you for being willing to share this conversation with our listeners.
Thank you, Kim. I'm really happy to be here.
And we were just having a chat right before we clicked record, and you were talking a little bit about your roller coaster of a day today. So please tell us a little bit about your background as an educator, just so we have just a little context from you, and then tell us a little bit about your roller coaster of a day today.
Sure. So I'm probably, I think, in my 20th year of being in education, past 20th, I should say, not 20th right now. Started out as kindergarten teacher for a long time, and then fortunately moved into reading intervention, which then led me into literacy coaching, which then led into deeper literacy specialist work. And so that really became a passion of mine. And then eventually, this was all in the US, and then eventually I had the opportunity to move abroad, which was really great. And went back to kindergarten, and great to apply what I had learned as a literacy coach and specialist. But then now recently in Panama City, I am now an assistant principal, and I'm in my second year as an assistant principal. And so I'm learning a lot. And thankfully, I've had a lot of great mentors at my school. I feel like we have some really great people that I can reach out to and go to support. But as everybody probably knows, everyone's very busy in education, and there's not always people to always process with. So today was an exceptionally busy day. I think we could probably say that almost every day, but there are some that are more than others. And so today was kind of a very, I don't know, dramatic picture of what a life as a can be. So even simply starting out at 6 a.m. with a professional learning book club that I chose to be part of. It's my own choice. But, so that was such a highlight of the day. It was a great start. And I was like, this is going to be a great day. And then as the day went on, it was kind of like this roller coaster all day long of like really highs. And we've been doing some new initiatives this year, using data more strategically, having data meetings with our teachers. And I've done a lot of that rollout with that and planning. And so we had a really great data meeting with one of our teams. And I was like, yay, that was so great. But in the midst of that, there was a severe behavior issue going on in our school. And it was something that I had to manage beyond the workday, sitting even at my own children's volleyball game, like messaging parents and sitting on my computer and finishing up some tasks. And so it was just one of those days where it was like there was so much to celebrate. Like even we had a great professional learning session. So it was kind of like after school before I went and did the other things. And so it was just one of those days where it was literally up and down all day. Oh, and then somebody told me that they're gonna not be coming back in a couple weeks because they got another job. So it's just one of those, like, all the emotions were happening today, lots of happies, but then lots of hard moments. And so that's kind of like, I think one of the biggest challenges as an administrator is the constant shifting all the time, like from one meeting to a next, like you really have to change your hat pretty much, and not always have that time between those events to like make that shift. And I think that's one thing that I'm really learning to navigate is like, how do I go from this really hard thing to now with a whole different group of people, and I have to be in a different mindset. And so that's something that as a newer administrator, I'm really working through and figuring out how to do that all day, every day.
That like short little intro is like, that needs to be a PSA. This is what it's like to move into school leadership. And I think what you have described there is really that transition of being able to focus on one thing versus when you're in a leadership position, you can't do that. You have so many responsibilities. So I know this is your second year. So the first question I'm wondering about, like, what have you found in this, making this transition, shifting from one meeting to the next, between last year and the amount of time that you've been in the position this year? What have you found that's working well for you? How are you able to manage this so far?
Well, Google Calendar is my lifesaver. Not advertising for Google, but the reality of like, I have to have everything scheduled though, so that's one thing that's really important. And even little tips and tricks for myself that I've done in there is like I color code things so that I know like what I work with a couple different grade levels and a couple different teams. And so I have everybody color coded. So I know like kind of mindset wise, like what team I'm working with right now. Or if it's like a bigger school meeting, I have that color coded a different color. So even just simple little things like that to like look at my calendar and be like, okay, this is the kind of meeting I'm going to right now. So that has helped a lot. Versus everything, usually you put something in the calendar, it's just all one color. So that's been a really helpful piece for me, just mindset wise. One thing I was trying to do, and I don't know if I've gotten great at it yet, but trying to build like at least a little bit of time between meetings. It doesn't always happen that way. Like I don't always have control, but even right now, I'm meeting with all my staff that I supervise, and they all have to schedule an appointment with me. So I actually put a 5-minute buffer in between each one, which I did not do last time. And it's literally like one's out, one's in, because a lot of times they'll schedule back to back. And so that's helped a lot. Just having, sometimes they go over, so the 5-minute buffer disappears, but having that 5-minute time just to maybe like breathe get a glass of water, resort myself, that helps a lot. So that's been something that has been beneficial as well for me.
Those are huge. I think it's really good to hear that you are feeling like you know what you're moving from one to another. Like, I think that's huge, right? So you've got this kind of sense of awareness of what's happening first, second, third. You know the mindset you need to be in when you move from one to another. What is not working in this context? Like, where is the area that is the biggest pain point for you that we could focus on for this conversation that you are like, I've got to sort out this?
I think it's probably, well, I have some strategies that I'm trying. I think it is still difficult sometimes, especially if you have like a really hard meeting with a parent or, a really challenging behavior problem, and then going to the next thing. And it's something that, you should be really upbeat. And, so how do you like kind of brush the one aside? It's something I'm working on, but it's hard to fake it, when you know that there's something lingering. And so like, I think I did okay today, but it's still something that is not easy, like literally wrapped up the one challenge. And then 10 minutes later, I'm leading professional learning with all of our learning assistants, and it was a great opportunity for them. And it was super positive. And so it's like, throw that other thing out. You got to put it aside, but it's not easy to do. Because the emails are still rolling in and, the things with that same situation are still there. So I think that's one of the hardest things is just how to make that shift when it's extreme things, especially, I think that's extra hard to do.
So what happens, like you're in this, having this difficult conversation with parents, with kids, whatever it might be, and you have to lead this PD thing next. What is currently happening in your mind? What are you doing in those moments between those meetings that you're working on, that you're trying to build this transition so that you're not like faking it, but maybe you are kind of faking it because that's the reality of the situation? Like, what are you doing now? What's happening now?
I think one thing that helps obviously is just being in a different space, like in this case, like I had to go up to a different room and I had to set up. So I think that alone, but of course, then I get up, like when we were talking about crazy, I get up to the space and not a thing is set up, not even a table, but so like kind of that doing something different kind of helps make the shift. So in that sense, like going up to the room, even though it wasn't ready in any way, shape, or form, I was kind of like, okay, let's set up the tables. Like it was a good distraction for me right away almost. So something like moving forward with something that's specific to the next thing helps a bit, so I felt like that today was beneficial for me, like having to do something physical for a moment, set up chairs, set up tables was beneficial. And then it is, to me, when the new people walk in, I think that helps a little bit too. You're like, okay, that has to be my focus right now, like the other stuff. Cause I know when I was setting up those tables, like I was thinking about like, okay, what am I gonna have to do after I'm done with this professional learning session? Cause this is not going away. Like this needs to be dealt with again, or more later afterwards. And so it's kind of, I think that's a key piece, is to really find a way to be present with the people who are there. And so, yeah, that's, to me, that's a really, really important thing, because I want to be present for them. So that's, I think, something that helped a bit today when I think back on kind of the hard and then the good and so on.
So thinking about that, being present for the people who are there in the moment and being present in whatever is happening, what helps you transition into that space? Is there you talked about moving things around, going to a different space, being physical for a moment. In this case, this was specific. I don't know if that would help all the time. We could talk about that
I'm
too.
not usually setting up tables, hopefully.
Right. But maybe you like need to keep a little weight set in your office, but that's a different story. So when you're there and you're recognizing the importance of being present with the people in the room, because that's what's important right now. What helps you get to that space if you don't have the physicality of moving tables?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think in those situations, like it's connecting with them right away, when they come in. So I think that's something in general at our school, we're trying to really work on, is greeting people and making them feel welcome. Because that's something that we know is really important. And so even recently, one of the things we tried to really work on for any professional learning is always starting out with a warm welcome. That's just such an important piece. And so that's something where I had to really quickly think to, like, how am I going to like wipe this off my face of what was going on earlier and provide that warm welcome. So greeting people at the door, and just connecting with them right away. I think that helped a lot. It's like, okay, this is who I'm with right now, and this is who needs my time and attention at this time.
So that really makes me think that it's the interpersonal connections with others that are helping you transition from one thing to another. And it sounds like all of the things that you're moving through, there's always going to be another person in this space. We haven't talked about like managing the non-interpersonal workload, because I know that exists as well. But in this case, we're talking about like with this group of people and then this group of people and then this group of people. So what I'm hearing you say is that feeling of personal connection with whoever you're with in the moment is what helps you make the transition from what was happening before to what is happening now.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that, because I think about all the meetings, right? And so
Yes.
it's that personal connection. When I have my middle of the year meeting with a teacher, when they walk in, that's that's where the shift can happen. I think, I try to prepare, I have my documents ready for them, whatever we need, usually a little card or something to say thanks for the work they're doing. But then also when they walk in, it's like, that's a key piece. I think you're spot on with that one.
Is that enough? Do you feel like that's enough time? Like once they're in the room and you can transition, or does that feel like, oh my gosh, I'm leaving it to the moment that they come in the room? And I'd really like to I'm not judging. I'm genuinely asking, like, do you feel like you need a moment to be in that space before they get there? And is that where the tension lies? Is that, when they get there, you're going to be in that space because you see your colleagues or whoever it is, and you care about this person and you're going to shift, but you're feeling a tension because you still have the butterflies in your stomach or the thoughts running through your head, and you're kind of leaving it to the moment that someone walks in the door? Or does that work for you? Is that okay?
Sometimes that has to work for me, right?
Yes.
Because of the time factor, like
Yes.
that other situation, I can't say it's done. I have this other thing until, what I mean?
Yes.
There's certain situations you can't brush aside. Ideally, I would love to have just like a minute to like
Yes.
gather before they walk in. That would be ideal, and what are we going to talk about? But sometimes it does have to be when the person walks in. But yeah, ideally, I'd love to have some time beforehand to think about what we're going to talk about. And I mean, usually I've done that, because one thing I do every day, in addition to my calendar, is I walk through my day before the day starts. I mean, obviously there's going to be the surprises. Like today, the hard parts were the surprises. And those weren't planned, and so, but the things that are planned, like I think about, okay, I'm having that meeting with that person. What are some things we're going to be talking about? So I do think through things before the day starts, and that does help. But as we were talking about, the day kind of goes sometimes in its own path. That is not what is on my Google Calendar, or in my note that I write every day about my day that's coming up.
Yes. So what I'm wondering is the tension that you're feeling, the stress that you're feeling, I know that sometimes you don't have the chance to get in the mindset, like someone walks out the door and someone walks in. But on those days when you have a minute or 2 minutes or whatever, that you're looking for that piece of like, what is it that I'm asking, are you looking for that piece of like, what is it I can do in this 1 or 2 minutes that resets me from whatever manic thing was happening a minute ago to the person I want to be for these people? Is that where like the tension lies for you now? Is like you're looking for, what is this consistent habit I can build into my practice that helps me transition from this to the other when I have the benefit of 1 or 2 minutes? Is that what we're talking about now?
Yeah, I think that would be like something that I would love to be able to like make that space for all the time.
Yes, me too.
Really
This is
helpful.
gold. Okay, so you do the daily walkthrough. Tell me what that looks like. When you look at your calendar, like what happens in that time?
Well, so it actually starts on Monday. I write out my calendar for the week, because I have the other one. It's just nice for me because I feel like it's a really good mental processing, just to be like, what does my week look like? And the new planner I bought like actually has the spot for goals and things that I'm going to work on for the week. So it's kind of nice in that sense. But then each day, I'll look through and see, okay, who am I meeting with today? Where do I need to be? Like that's another key piece, right? It's not always in my space, it's in lots of different spaces. So thinking about all those different elements of the day, like where do I need to be? Who do I need to be with? Where am I going? All of those things.
Okay, so you've got tons of amazing organizational habits that hopefully, since I know we are sharing this, I will highlight. Hopefully, people are hearing. You color code your calendar so you know what kind of mindset you need to be in so that you can go from one place to another. You try to add some buffer time in between meetings when it's possible so that you can take a drink, have a breath. You set your intentions at the beginning of the week with not only your agenda for what you have planned, like what's actually taking your time, but also what you actually want to get done when you don't have all those meetings. And then you
Mhm.
also look at each day. So when
Mhm.
you're looking at I'm wondering, and let's find out, when you're looking at the day, is there something we can build in your preparing for the day that might be a trigger or a reminder when you're transitioning from meeting to meeting that this is how I wanted to be in this space. This is the Kathy I want to bring in this moment that you could even set up for yourself at the beginning of each day. And my immediate thought is like, I don't know, is there like a post-it note? Is there an image? Is there something simple that you could bring to your day? Maybe it's even a Google Calendar reminder. I'm not sure, but tell me a little bit about looking at your day.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny when I think when I was a kindergarten teacher, like I had to like put a note on my desk to remember to breathe, you
Yes,
know?
that's what I feel
Um,
like. You got to go back to those KG skills.
I know. I felt like I had a little more time, which was crazy because kindergarten is not a like free time, rarely ever. So
Nope.
clearly I was reminding myself to breathe when I taught kindergarten. But you're
Yes.
right. Maybe that's what I need. I think I actually had like a little bubble somewhere that said, remember to breathe, like take
Yes.
that time, just for myself. And so that could be something like that. I have a lot of reminders around my room, but it's not like little things like that could be super beneficial. Like are you taking that minute? Like just asking
Yes.
myself a question, like on my computer, I could even, I don't know, like how when you open up your computer and there's the message or whatever it is on your screen, like
I don't think
did
I
you
know
take
about that, but I would like to know what that is.
that?
So
I
yeah,
had it at one point and I don't know how to do it again, like where it would show like something and I can't remember what it was.
so that could be a thing, but like, okay, so in general, this concept of like, I get to work at whatever time, I look ahead at my day. I'm even wondering, like, you might need to present yourself as a like slightly different Kathy in between these various different meetings. Like, is there like a process that would help you? I can't get around the post-it note because that's the thought that's in my head right now. But is there a
Mhm.
process that would help you set up for each individual? And maybe it is just remember to breathe. Maybe that is all that you need. But like,
Right.
is there a habit you could get into on your daily checking in with yourself that will help you make that quick shift between meetings when you're looking at your day?
Hmm. One thing that I had learned about recently, I have not implemented yet, was thinking about like, I don't know if like an objective for the meeting, like kind of, so because, well, I know it, but I don't, you know what I mean? Like it's not
Yes.
explicit. And so, because that can help with mindset, I feel like with
Yes.
knowing like what's the purpose of this meeting that I'm having. Um, and so yeah, it kind of that makes me think like I wonder if that's something that's beneficial to go back to and think about doing because having an objective for the meeting really can make it clear like decisions need to be made. So there's a different hat in a sense that needs to be
Yes.
meeting with a parent. So what am I doing with this parent? Because sometimes it's organized by me by our counselor and I'm joining, but it helps me to know like what are we actually talking about? Is it an academic concern? Is it a behavior concern? Is it, I don't know, there's so many different
Yes.
things to talk about, but knowing exactly what the objective of the meeting helps me because I do like to know what's going on,
Of
it's
course.
like I don't, so that to me could be something that I could revisit and think about like do I put that in the Google Calendar? Like in there just to know what are we doing in this meeting?
Yeah, maybe it's in the morning or even the night before, however you do your prepping for the day. Your Google Calendar is there and you have a next line underneath the title of what the meeting is, and it's just objective and whatever the word is, like talk about student support services or whatever your objective is. And maybe just seeing that in your Google Calendar when that reminder comes up that I'm going to this next thing, that is the visual cue or clue that you will help you kind of reset into the mindset of this is the Kathy I need to be in this meeting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. Because I remember when we learned about it, I was like, I want to do that. And then I haven't done it yet. But
And do you,
I also feel like it's a good standard, like everybody I work with, because it's like I'm not always making the meetings, and it would help a ton if I knew what I was
yes.
going to be meeting for.
Does it feel like it's too much work, and given the hectic state of your day, to take the time at the beginning when you go through and add that piece in, even for the next couple of weeks until your next holiday, and see if that works for you?
Yeah, I do think that could be really, really helpful. Well, we have a holiday next week, but I can
Ah,
start after break.
you can start after the holiday, between that holiday and the next holiday.
It can be my goal for maybe like the next part
Yes.
of our school year, because it gets a
Yes.
little crazy right now with all the
Yes.
everything going on. So
Yes. How does that feel? Just even thinking about like taking that moment to really sort your intentions for each individual thing for the day so that you know when you are kind of wrapping up one hectic thing and moving to another, you're able to see the purpose of that next step.
that to me helps a ton. Like just in the sense of it's just, the clarity and in where I need to be mentally, just helps in the sense of being strategic with how I'm approaching the meeting, and then also the kind of support I need to bring, or, just there's just so many different elements that go into with, speaking with people and meeting with people, that would be, I think, really beneficial.
When you think about and you look forward to the next couple of weeks doing this, what do you think? You're talking about the clarity will help a ton. What do you think might also happen when you're going into these meetings with this more clear intention objective for each conversation?
The first word that came to my head as you were saying that was calm. Like calmer. Okay, I can't say calm, but I could say calmer, because I think that brings more calm to me. Like if I know exactly what's happening, where I need to be, what I need to be doing. Because as you could see, I based on the things I've said, very organized, and clarity helps as well in addition to organization.
Yes, and that calmness. I mean, I think what we were talking about today, you talked a lot about a roller coaster and the hectic nature of your job. And so even just hearing you say the word calm, I'm like, oh my gosh, if we could bring a sense of calmness to your daily life. And I know it's not going to be calmness in the sense of like I'm at a yoga retreat, but calmness in the sense of like in the midst of chaos. Like that feels like that is getting much closer to what you kind of are hoping to move towards.
Yeah, for sure. Because then I feel like I can operate just more thoughtfully as a leader. If I can be calm and clear about the things that I'm doing and the approach I need to take to things, I think I can be a more effective leader that way.
That's super exciting. That sounds great. Okay, so we have one strategy you want to apply, and maybe it's after
Mhm.
your break until the next break to see if that works. And then the follow-up beyond that is if that does work and you are finding that beneficial, to maybe ask the people who are setting meetings with you to start building this process into your school culture, because maybe that'll bring a sense of calm to everyone and a sense of purpose to what we're doing together.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that'd be great. And so I could use my own self as a test pilot and
Yes.
go and see how that helps, and then, start to sprinkle out the clarity for everybody.
Yes. Okay. So when you think of those two things kind of hopefully proceeding along well, is there something else that's bubbling to the surface in the back of your mind that you're like, well, what about this? And what about this? Or are you thinking that this is the next thing that's going to come up in my mind?
I think, talking about the different people, that we work with in all of these different roles or meetings that I've been talking about. It's like jumping from person to person to person and being present with them. So like we talked about, like the reality is we can add in this objective and ensuring that we're fully present with the people. And so I think the one thing that I really want to be as a leader is to show compassion and care, but also clarity, if we stick with that theme in a sense. And so ensuring that when I am present, if making as much intention as I can, that I also communicate, clearly in each of these different meetings each time, that I'm in or wherever I'm at. Sometimes it's on the go, sometimes it's in a planned meeting, but just really ensuring that I have clear communication, even in the despite of the craziness that goes every single day, and the shifts that we talked about earlier, going from one meeting to the next, to the next, to the next. Because sometimes I'm like, did I talk to you about that? Or was that somebody else? Did we talk about that yesterday? So it's one of those things that, and I feel like I'm a really good note taker, but there are times where I'm just like, what is going on? Like, I can't remember who I talked to that about. So like managing all the information that comes into with all the different people. So that way I don't miss something that I really want to make sure that I promise to do, or something I'll follow up on, just really ensuring that in the midst of all the different things, I don't miss things, that I'm supposed to be taking care of.
Okay. So what I'm hearing you say is, even with the potential clarity and calmness, that there are lots of conversations happening and sometimes things can get lost. And how do you keep track of all those things? So, of course, the first question I'm going to ask you is, what are you currently doing? What's working for you in your systems now?
So I have a book. I'm looking around, like, it's not here. I would rather just hold it up and say. And so anybody who knows me, they know that goes in there, because that is walked with me. Like I bring it with me almost all the time, so that way, even if someone on the go catches me, I'm like, well, let me just write that down if I have the capacity to do that. Or if I'm in a meeting, I'll write my notes in there. Or just in a conversation with someone, okay, I have a to-do list in there. I have talk to my principal about lists. Like I have a couple lists in there, or just a record of a conversation too, if I have to. So typically I can find what I need to find, but there's always those things that I'm like, maybe I didn't write it down. Maybe I need a different system, because why didn't I remember that? One of those things. And so at the moment, that's what I do right now, is I write it down for most things that I have the book with me, or that I remember to write down. Because sometimes, you really want to be listening.
Yes.
Be like, well, let me write that down for a minute.
Yes.
And then that, if I don't write it down, because it's like, I need to really just be listening and not write things down in the moment, just depending on what's said to me.
Yes.
I would write afterwards, but sometimes there isn't an afterwards.
Yes.
That like when there's not that time between meeting 1, meeting 2, meeting 3. Now I'm 2 hours later, and I was like, what did I say I was going to do again?
Yes. How often is this a lot? Do you feel like this is happening a
No,
lot?
it's not that often. And I have really high expectations for myself.
Yep.
So I just don't like it when I
Me
don't
too.
remember it once,
Listen, this whole conversation is resonating with me on like 600 different levels. I'm like, yes, I totally know that feeling. That is very frustrating. I know I promised something to someone, but so many things have happened and I didn't write it down for whatever reason. And now I cannot for the life of me remember who it was. So I can't even ask. And nor do I remember what it was, but I know it's something. And I do find that a lot of times those come back to me when I sleep, and I like wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, but that's not necessarily a good sign either, right? Because you should be able to sleep through the night. So I hear you. Okay. So what I'm wondering is, when that happens and you go and you find out suddenly it's been 3 or 4 hours and you've been meeting to meeting to meeting, and something happened in hour 1 of this sequence, but you cannot remember what it was. Do you even remember? And I know I'm just asking now because I'm just trying to like understand. Do you even remember in hour 1, like that it was in hour 1 that it happened? Or you're like, maybe it was in any one of those hours? Because I think that's what happens to me. It could have been in any one of those hours.
It can, especially like if I had a conversation with somebody that was maybe related to the similar thing with a different person,
Yep.
in that sense, that is when that happens. Like where I have like, was it with her or with that person? Oh, we talked
Yes.
about literacy or data with them. And I think we talked, so that's what I
Yes.
get really, that's when I mostly get confused, I think, is when it's,
Yes.
I've had some similar conversations on the same day, because
Yes.
the helpful thing, I think, sometimes to be like, oh yeah, that was with them. We met, but if I did a couple of similar conversations, which happens a lot, I think, because if we're
Yes.
having some challenges or, there's something happening, it's often many people are involved. And so that person stopped in to talk to me, and then that person stopped in to talk to me. And
Yes.
sometimes it's not even the scheduled meeting, right? It's the person who stopped in, like, do you have a minute? And yeah. I have like 5 minutes. You can come in, and then lots gets unloaded. And then those are, I think, actually probably where that most commonly happens, to be honest with you.
Yes.
It's not on my calendar,
Because
but
then you
it
can't go
happened.
back and look and see, this is who
No.
I met with today.
Right.
Okay, now I don't, now we're like book ending your day. And I
Yeah.
have a thought, and it may or may not be appropriate, but we talked about setting intentions for each meeting, having an objective for each meeting, like kind of in a morning, preparing for the next day. I'm wondering if there is any value to something at the end of your day where, and I'm thinking lots of things. I'm thinking like journals, I'm thinking all sorts of different ways that you could do this, but where you're kind of reflecting on the day to see if anything bubbles to the surface that you may have missed in the hectic pace of your day. But if you like sit, is there a way that you can work in that doesn't get too much in the way of your life, where it's just like a few moments of what happened to me today and how do I debrief with myself what happened to me today, so that if there was something that got lost, I'm thinking about it on the day rather than, and I'm not saying you leave it for days, but like to me that would help, is like on the day.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because when we just were talking, I was like, oh yeah, maybe that's what I need to do at the end of the day, is like just think about my day. Because I sometimes you just don't,
Yep.
you get to the end and you need to just be done. Fortunately or unfortunately, I always have time because I have children that are in things at school, and I'm always at school till at least 5 o'clock. And I'm like, it's the worst time of day for me because it's not my productive time. I'm much more productive in the morning. But maybe that time, instead of me like trying to get things done, and it's so hard for me to be productive and get like good thinking work done, I think at the time, it might be better use of my time to actually think about my day and like do some processing. But I have not built, I haven't built that in, and that's where I don't prioritize it clearly, so
Yes.
that could
But
be really
this is amazing that you have this time. Like I'm very wary of being like, do you have more time for another thing? Because you just told me how busy your day is. So if that, because I'm like you, we sound very similar in many ways. I'm trying not to get like too excited about it, but I'm the same as you, morning person. I try to like do all my good thinking in the morning as much as I can because that's when my brain works. But I have found a sense of calm in the afternoon, just running through what happened to me today. What did I do? Where did I go? Who did I talk to? What happened? And maybe this is in that same notebook that you already have that you're like annotating, or maybe you have your own separate space and it's like a little self debrief, like what actually happened. And if you're also like me, I do actually like handwriting things. And so for me, I find it really calming to just like write stuff down. And maybe that's what you do, is like every day you have 10 or 15 minutes or however much time you feel like you have your mental capacity. And you just kind of write down like what happened to me today. Like just write down some of the key things, because I'm wondering if you write some of those things down, if things will pop up in your head right in that moment and you can tie them right back to wherever you noted it in your journal, so it doesn't get lost. It might not be something you're going to do in that moment. It might be something you have to do tomorrow or next week or whatever, but you can put it into your system in the day.
Yeah, that actually I think would be super helpful, because there's just so, like, the whole point of what we've been talking about is
So
there's
much.
so much that happens. And I think sometimes like today I was messaging my principal that I work with and I was like, I feel like the good stuff is clouded with the bad stuff, like, and then it's hard to like to sort that out because I want to celebrate all the good, but I'm like buried right now. I feel like in these emails with this person that the hard things happen with, and so that I think could give me a chance to show myself that like, hey, there were like some good things that happened today. And then there were some hard things that happened today, but how did I handle those things, and almost in a sense being able to kind of look at back and say, even though that was hard, I still was able to do that. And even though that happened, I still was able to do that because I don't think I do that enough. And so, because I tend to, like I mentioned earlier, be very hard on myself. And so I need to find ways to be able to reflect and think about how things handle, and also probably think about how maybe I would do something differently next time too, if there were some things that I didn't do maybe the way I would have ideally liked to have been done, for example, or maybe didn't have
Yes.
enough time just to breathe.
Yes. Maybe your end of day journal follows some kind of template. So you're like slotting things into a space and it's like highlights, hard things, things I still think I want to do, and like what I learned today or something like that. Like I can imagine, I don't know if it's in the same notebook that you carry around all the time or it's in its own like personal debrief notebook or whatever it is, but I can imagine having a structure for that might also help you as you build the habit of doing that thing as you go through the day to be like, that was a really tough conversation, but I'm going to put in my journal tonight that I did X. And that is a thing I want to do every time I have that kind of conversation. Or what happens to me more often, which is like, ooh, that was a tough conversation and I did this, but next time I really want to do this. But like writing it down and giving your brain time to process it is so important because then you remember it when it happens next. But if you're just leaving, going from one thing to the next, you're not giving your brain time to process.
That's such a good point because there's so much to process, thinking about all the things that happen every day. And yeah, there's things that we want to do better. And unless we step back and think this is probably what I should do next time if this comes up, would be really helpful, I feel like. So that's something I'm going to figure out. What's a good strategy for me? I have time to do that. But just what's the best way to look at the day and think about it?
And even how can you make it enjoyable for you? Like I hear you on that's not your most active brain time. So you're like trying to force yourself to do stuff. So can you make this even enjoyable for yourself? Like I am a child of the 80s. I enjoy like colored pens and sparkly stickers. And I know it's silly, but if I have some of those things with me, it can make it fun. Somebody else might want, a cup of tea or I don't know, some other thing, whatever other people like. But maybe there's a little piece of this that you could also have a moment of joy as you're doing this because this makes it fun for you too.
I like colored pens too.
See, we have a lot in common. But it sounds so silly, but I love like if I can label something and I can sort it into a column, it makes my brain feel, yeah, calm. Like you were saying before, it makes my brain feel calm. And if I feel calm, I know I can take the next thing. And so finding these habits that help you feel that sense of calm, maybe a little bit more of control, like it's not flying everywhere, right? You're like, it's settled maybe is a better word.
Yeah.
Then you can go into the next day with all of those intentions and not feel like, oh, but there was that lingering thing from the day before.
That is a really good point. Or like you mentioned, or wake up in the middle of the night or the next morning, it's like, okay, now I got to deal with that still. And so I think that would help a lot with having kind of closure to a day in a sense,
That.
but also maybe a clear plan because the reality sometimes is something that happens that day might need to lead to another meeting the next day. And so, yeah, that's definitely something that I want to find a way to make that happen for me.
What do you think might help you get to that next step? Like, what are you thinking about? What are you processing?
Uh, don't laugh.
No.
Probably put it on my calendar,
Yeah.
like calendar it, it's
Yes.
like what you make time for. is what you know is important, right? So
Yes.
making time to do like on Monday mornings, I make that time every Monday to write out my calendar for the week. I know that's what I do every Monday. And I think routine, as we all know, like once you get into routine, it becomes a habit, right? So
Yes.
but that takes a while. So
Yep.
it's probably just remember to reflect, even if it's just
Yes.
starting minutes or 10 minutes, but taking that time at the end of the day and honestly putting it on my calendar because
Yes.
as I mentioned, like that time is where I'm like, well, what else do I have to do? And I'm not as efficient at
Yes.
4 p.m. So,
Yes.
so maybe putting that in like 4 p.m. every day, take
Yes.
time to reflect on your day.
And it doesn't have to be long. And as you do it more, it'll go faster. One of the mental things that helps me, I call it for myself, and then, again, don't laugh. I call it like a CEO debrief. And because I run my own business, and when I like give
Yeah.
it that label of like this is important, like that's why I was using the term debrief with you, because it's like this is not just for you, it's not just a fun activity for you. It's part of your, if you put it into that mindset of like this is part of me being better at my job. This
Hmm.
is an actual piece of my work, is like doing my job well requires me to have this time. And so I'm not trying to add more to your day. And I recognize we have done that on both ends. So I'm very conscious of that. But I think if there's a mindset of like, this is what helps me be good at my job, that also is like, this is a professional thing. This isn't like, yes, I'm doing it with colored markers and maybe sparkly stickers, but it's a professional thing that makes me better at my job.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
How are you feeling after our conversation? What are your thoughts now? Yeah. How do you feel? What was helpful for you today?
Well, I'm kind of feeling slightly hopeful, I guess, is a way to describe it, because I think that we talked about some interesting strategies for me to try to add maybe some calm to my day and also some time for reflection that I don't always make. And so I think adding those pieces into, even though, like we said, the time is a bit of an essence, but I feel like these are important things, as I mentioned, the things that are important are the things you should make time for. And there are a lot of important things throughout our day, but putting these things in place, like adding objectives to meetings and taking time for reflection at the end of the day, I think will really help provide some clarity for me in regards to where I need to be, what kind of place I need to be in mentally, but then also just really provide just a clear picture of what's going to happen throughout the day, because that might even tell me like when the roller coaster pieces might be happening, knowing this is a really hard meeting and this is something that is kind of more a happy thing where we're kind of celebrating or recognizing great work that's happening. And then just adding the reflection pieces at the end of the day, I think is going to be, I think, really powerful in the sense of being able to take time to think about all the pieces that happen throughout the day and not just maybe linger on some of the not so good pieces, because I think that tends to be where they get stuck sometimes. And so really taking that time on all the different things that happen every day.
And how awesome would it be if you looked back over the year and you could flip through that notebook and see like a whole bunch of highlights and big learnings that you took away from literally every day at your job? Because that's the stuff you forget about, right? Like it just happens and it's gone. It would even be like a nice retrospective for you.
Right. Agreed. It's kind of like a journal for your career.
Yes, it kind of is. Actually, this is a very good idea. I like this. Listeners, you will
Yeah,
hear more
yeah.
about this later.
No, it's true. It's true. But as especially as a new leader, it's something last year I did a lot of reflecting, and I don't think enough reflecting though. I
Yes.
don't, I took enough time to think about my own growth, think about things. I mean, I can look back and think about different pieces and people that helped me grow, but it's a lot of those little things
Yes.
that, kind of get lost in all the larger things. And
And I
there's just
know,
so.
yes, I totally agree. And I know we're kind of talking about the daily, like slowing down the daily. But one of the other things I also do that may or may not be helpful for you is like a quarterly check-in and then a half year check-in, which is obviously the same as a quarterly, but it's like a little bit bigger at the half year. because then you take those daily check-ins and your weekly check-ins and your monthly check-ins and you look at them from a bigger perspective. So that could be something that maybe like plant a seed for you, that if you like this process and you feel like this is working for you, that's how you pull out the longer term trends that you're seeing. Even if it's something as simple as you notice that putting the objectives on your meetings is actually changing how you feel as you're going into work, as you're proceeding through your day. After a quarter, if that's really working, then you're really going to sell it to your principal, maybe your head of school or whoever, because like this has had such a big impact. So there is layers to the reflecting you can do to help you like recognize the big takeaways over the course of the year too.
Yeah, that sounds actually really, really powerful.
Yes. Okay, we could have a whole nother conversation on that, but I'm going to stop our conversation here. Thank you so much for sharing this conversation, for having the conversation, and for allowing me to share the conversation. That was like, I have so many things. As soon as I click stop, then we're going to have another little conversation. So thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Kim. I really appreciated just processing with you.
Yay. Thanks for watching this coaching conversation with Kathy. I hope as you listened or watched the conversation that you can see how a single coaching conversation can help you feel like you have a pathway forward, even in an overwhelmingly busy leadership position. As Kathy highlighted at the end of the call, she now has some specific strategies to help her find some space and time for reflection on a regular basis. One of the great things about having a conversation like this is having a thought partner to fully process your current reality with outside eyes. At the end of the call, you hear Kathy talk about how the call supported her thinking and gave her tangible steps forward that will have an impact on the pacing of her days. If this conversation today resonated with you, you might also enjoy some of our other Coaching Conversations episodes. I'll link them up here and in the show notes. And you might also enjoy an episode from a previous season with Lataya Roll, who is a principal at the International School of Brussels. I've been working with Lataya for many years, from when she was at the JFK School in Berlin, where I'm coaching all of the leaders there. Making time and space for processing thinking is extremely valuable. If you are a leader who is in this kind of busy and overwhelming role, having the time to process your thinking with an outside experienced coach can be hugely impactful. The thing I really appreciate about this conversation with Kathy is how clearly it demonstrates that everyone, including leaders, can benefit from coaching. It's the process of coaching that provides the structure for reflective thinking that can help our coaching partners discover their next step forward. Everyone can benefit from this kind of experience. If you're a leader in your school, are you making time to be coached? If you have coaches in your school community, I know they would love the opportunity to support you in this way. And if you need to reach out to a coach outside your school community, I'm here for that, and I know there are tons of others who are here for this kind of conversation for you. If you're an instructional coach and you're looking to start coaching school leaders or to build your portfolio of coaching partners, being able to articulate the value of coaching is an essential part of the process. Becoming a coaching advocate, along with developing your coaching skills, is part of all of our courses for instructional coaches, aligned to your level of coaching experience. Each of our global cohorts creates intentional time and space for instructional coaches to grow in their individual coaching practice, the micro view, and the development of their coaching program, the macro view. We offer 3 global cohorts a year, all tailored to your specific experience level. Each of our 3 global cohorts will help you take the next step in your coaching, either as a brand new or aspiring coach in getting started as an instructional coach, or as a current coach ready to build a coaching program in the Coach Certificate and Mentorship Program, or as a coach who's ready to lead in Coaches as Leaders. Find all the details about all of our courses at coachbetter.tv/learn. Global cohorts open only once a year. Get all the details at coachbetter.tv/learn. If you're not sure which course is right for you, watch one of our free workshops for instructional coaches designed specifically for your level of coaching experience so you can take the next step in your learning right now and uncover which course is right for you next. Find it all at coachbetter.tv/learn. Wherever you are in your coaching journey, we can support you. If you're curious right now and you have questions, please reach out. You can leave a comment here on this video or in the show notes on our website at coachbetter.tv. You can join our Coach Better Facebook group, or you can find us on social media at Eduro Learning and send me a DM. I'd love to support you on your coaching journey. See you next time.